Thank you, Mr. Chair. I had an additional item I'd like to bring forward. Ms. Roth, are you here? Could I ask you to step forward? Thank you, Rebecca. Rebecca's head of our zoning and planning department. This is in reference to the proposal for the Hilton Bluffs development on the Sledge Forest property off of Castlehane Road. There's been considerable discussion within the county departments and in the community about this project. It's clear there's still many unknowns for the property. The impacts of development on the scale that is being proposed on the existing communities in the area and on the infrastructure in the northern portion of our county. I'd like to ask you for your department to gather more information about this project and research the potential of a permit modification that would require the submittal of information by the applicant that addresses key areas of concern before moving forward with the approval process. Some of those areas, and you may have others to add to this, are the verification of soil types and identification and certification of marshlands and wetlands. When appropriate, assurances that all CAMA permitting is complete or that there's a reasonable expectation by CAMA officials that permits will be issued. Number 3, in areas that are located in or adjacent to existing floodplains that the most current NOAA or NOAA floodplain maps are being submitted. Also, verification of transportation access to the proposed areas of development, verification and description of the location and the extent of the biodiversity located on the proposed development site. And finally, given the traffic concerns, I'd like also for staff to look at how our standards can better consider the impacts of projects on existing roadways. So if you could please research this and bring this back to the commission at a future date, I'd be most appreciative.
Mr. Chair, if I might add some comments.
Sure.
Thank you, Commissioner Zapple, for reading off those items. We have had quite a few members of the community reach out to us to express concern about the Hilton Bluffs development, about Sledge Forest. There are a number of names that are floating around there. I have a note card from someone that I received that in part reads, "We deserve to be heard." And yes, you certainly do deserve to be heard. The concern that I have is perhaps in some of the messaging that's been out there, there's been this perception that there's a foregone conclusion, there's nothing that can be done, there is a process, and we're going to rubber stamp it. Well, we don't rubber stamp anything at New Hanover County. And part of what I think Rob and I and perhaps some of the other commissioners want to help communicate to the public is that we are going to look into this matter to make sure that all formalities are being followed, that the rules and regulations that the county has previously established are in fact being complied with to the degree that they're supposed to be. And that we further understand some of the implications that are out there, such as the ones that Rob read into the record just a moment ago. So I would encourage you and your staff to please look diligently into this matter. And again, we want the public to know we have heard you, you are being heard, and we are going to look into this matter to find out what, if anything, is available to be done to make sure that we're doing the right things, complying with the law here in New Hanover County. But do not please make an assumption that because there has been some phrasing that there is a by right conclusion that we're just going to, again, rubber stamp this matter. We don't rubber stamp anything in New Hanover County.
Did you get all that?
I did. So if it's the will of the board, we'd be glad to look into this further. Of course, as Commissioner Scalise mentioned, the review of this project is still ongoing. There have been no approvals made, and we are still making sure that we have the information we need to ensure that the project is complying with all of our regulations. My understanding is that there are questions about our process and when certain information is required as we move through potential approvals. And if it's the pleasure of the board, we'd be glad to look into that further to make sure that our processes ensure that some of these concerns are addressed. And if there are any concerns that y'all have that would require changes to policies, that we identify those so y'all can take the appropriate steps necessary to address what it is that you feel from a policy perspective is important.
So to be clear, for the benefit of my fellow commissioners, I believe that Ms. Roth is looking for a confirmation and affirmation from at least a majority of this board that you are in agreement that staff should in fact look into this matter as Rob and I have suggested.
Yes.
You need,
Sorry.
Rebecca, would it be better for us to have a formal vote on this to bring this action forward?
Commissioner Zapple, I don't know that we would want you to take a vote. I think primarily to understand there's a consensus with at least 3 board members that this is a way that staff should spend its time.
I
So,
think you have that. Oh,
If I might,
Yes, we
Mr.
have
Chair, but just for some more clarity, I don't think any of us are implying you're not doing your job. I think that we want to go to the highest level of due diligence for our citizens, and I think
Yes.
that's what you're hearing here. I think it's important that our citizens know what is the process and what are those, let's call it hoops, that a developer would have to jump through, especially those projects that don't come to the county commissioner
Yes.
for us to make a comment on.
Mhm.
So I think that's what you and I had discussed, and I think that would offer some clarity. And I think that's what I hear the fellow commissioners here saying, is we don't want to miss anything. So let's pay extra attention to those items.
Yes, and we'd be glad to bring back some of that information to make sure it's as clear as possible.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rebecca.
You're welcome.
Okay, now we've got 2 speakers. First one is Doug New, I guess is how you say it. Mr. New, you state your name and address, and you got 3 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Douglas New. I'm at 924 Genoa Loop in Castlehane, 28429. I'm here to speak out against the Sledge Forest and the Hilton Bluffs development. I am new to the county. When I moved here, I certainly didn't expect there to be no development in my community. You know, any community needs development to sustain itself and to be a vibrant community. But from what I hear, this 4,000 home development is going to inundate our community with upwards of 30,000 car trips a day on a 2-lane, country road, which was never designed for that kind of traffic. We actually had, I think it's very telling, that we had CFPUA here to give a detailed report on their facilities and, can they sustain 4,000 new homes? We had another environmental report here, laying out how the water is coming back, and it's improving. So now you're going to put in another development which wants to include, my understanding, a golf course on the Upper Cape Fear River. And we all know that golf courses are the biggest polluters around, and they're going to put that right on a river. And it makes no sense to me. My understanding is that there's a law in place, whether it's county or state, I'm not sure, that allows 1 home per acre. And by him taking 3,000 acres and saying, okay, I'm not going to develop that, but I'm going to put 4,000 homes on 1,000 acres, seems to me that law could never have been written with that intention. Maybe it was written for a smaller scale, someone who has a few, 4 or 5 acres and wants to put homes, but wants to maintain an area that is undeveloped. So it seems to me that this developer coming from Charlotte out of town wants to make his living here and walk away and leave us with his problems to deal with. Now, certainly, he's not going to build 4,000 homes overnight, but whatever his timeline is, it's going to have an effect on this community for far into the future. So please, I don't know what the public can do as far as speaking out against this and what effect it has, but I want it on the public record that I'm against it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And, Bill Jane?
Good morning. My name's Bill Jane, and I live in Rosewood Landing Drive in Castle Hayne. And I want to say that I've been a resident of New Hanover County for almost 20 years, and have been very much involved over that period of time with preservation of our natural and historic resources. I'm a former chair of the Wilmington Tree Commission, one of the founders of the Alliance for Cape Fear Trees, a former member of Historic Wilmington Foundation. And I want to thank the members of the board for their action this morning in asking the Planning Department to check further on this Sledge Forest project. And my message, my request clearly to you is to save Sledge Forest. First of all, the area of this development has been considered valuable conservation land for decades. The North Carolina Natural Heritage Program in the early 2000s designated Sledge Forest as a significant natural heritage area. It was shown as conservation area in both the 2006 CAMA land use plan as well as the 2016 plan, New Hanover County Comprehensive Plan. It would seem that the 3,000 acres of the marsh never should have been zoned RA. It was never practical to build even one home per acre there. And the performance housing regulations state that all natural lakes, ponds, rivers, and marshes are to be subtracted in calculating the density for performance housing development. The application did not subtract that, so the marsh would have to be conserved in its entirety. The county's technical review committee said that the residential standards would require that entire area to be conserved. I want to make the point very quickly that there's no, we draw lines on a map, but the river, the marsh, the so-called uplands, all of which are below 20 feet elevation and above sea level, are all one. With that in mind, it is not possible to build 4,000 units on that approximately 1,000 acres without destroying the marsh that's supposed to be conserved. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Chris? Anybody else got anything?
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
This meeting is adjourned.